Welcome to Floor Fab. In this video, we're going to be upgrading my charging system, doing the big 3 upgrade, and we're also going to put an eyelet down on my axle so I can use a suckdown winch. So follow me while I build this. A suckdown winch, all it does is connect your winch line to your axle. So all we're going to do is build a hook or a mount right here that I can connect my winch line to. And then when you suck in on the winch, it's going to compress the suspension and suck the body down onto the suspension, preloading it. And why would you want that? Well, when you're climbing really steep hills, the suspension wants to unload. It wants to drop away from the body. The body wants to kind of fall backwards away from the hill, whatever you're climbing. And that obviously makes the Jeep unstable. It doesn't feel good, right? You can maybe feel that your front end's getting light, feel those tires start to dance, and it's not a nice feeling. The suckdown winch is gonna preload the suspension and bring everything down, and since this line is here and it's gonna be tight, it's not gonna allow the body to maybe separate from the axle, if you wanna call it that. And it's just gonna give you a much more stable feeling when you're climbing a hill. And that's something you can tune with your winch by sucking it in and out. You can get different amounts of preload. I've got the winch controls inside the cab, so all I have to do is reach down and I can suck the winch in and out depending on what hill or what trail I'm on. And then if you ever need the winch, if you get stuck, all you have to do is come unattach it from the axle, and then you can pull cable to a tree, to another guy, and get yourself out. So I'm going very simple on this, mainly because I don't want to spend any money. I just want to knock this out real quick with some material I have on hand. So this is just 1/4-inch plate, and I'm cutting it down on the bandsaw just into a rectangle. I'll clean up the corners on the belt sander, and then we're gonna pop a hole in the middle of it that can fit a D-ring shackle, and that's gonna be my connection point for the suckdown winch. And then this plate will get welded to the axle. And that's it. That's all it takes to turn your front-mounted winch into a suckdown winch. We've got a simple tab welded to my full hydraulic steering mount, a couple of braces on either side of it so it doesn't get pulled one way or the other, because it's just 1/4-inch steel, but you're not going to use that as a recovery point or anything. It's strictly going to be used to pull the suspension down. So from here, I've got this tiny little D-ring, and that fits right into the eyelet on my winch line because I don't use a hook. And then this will just thread right on. All right, so now that's hooked up, and now I'm going to take my remote for the winch, turn it on, and we're going to spool it in. And that's all it does. You can see as I spool it in, it's sucking down on the suspension. You can see the coilovers. See them pop back up. Now we can suck them back down. So, and that's something I can do in the cab. I've got in-cab controls mounted on my center console, so I don't need this. This is just, for demonstrational purposes, so I can be up here. But I can leave this hooked up as we're driving around the trail, and I can leave this spooled out so the suspension can flex all at once. And then whenever we get to a hill climb where I want to suck it down for more stability, all I have to do is hit the button and it'll do that. Simple as that. Okay, the next simple modification I'm going to do is called the Big Three. And it's called that because on your charging system, your alternator to your battery, there's three main cables. There's one cable that goes from the alternator to the battery on your positive side. There's a ground cable that goes from your battery to your body. And there's a ground cable that goes from the battery to the engine. If you're a full frame vehicle, you might have a fourth one that goes battery to frame, but I'm working on an XJ, it's a unibody, so you've only got one cable going to the body, one to the motor, that's it. So there's three cables to upgrade. And when I say upgrade, you're going to install a larger cable. You know, these factory cables, you know, they're maybe 8 gauge, maybe 4 gauge, something like that. So you upgrade it to, I'm going to use 0 gauge cable. And that's just a larger diameter cable. And a larger diameter cable can move more amperage. It's as simple as that. By upgrading the size of the cable, you're going to charge better. And you're going to allow your winch to run better, your lights, you're probably going to get more voltage out of your battery because it's going to have a simpler time charging it. There's less resistance in the fatter wire. So it's as simple as that. You can leave the existing wires in, but I'm working on a pretty short run here from alternator to battery. So I'm going to start stripping back these looms and try and get rid of the factory cables. Okay, so I've got all the cables removed that I want to. All that I removed was the 2 ground cables off the battery. On my XJ, the power actually runs from the alternator to the fuse block, to like a distribution block basically, and then it runs back to the battery. So I'm gonna leave that one be. That line powers the fuse box, no need to really touch it. And I'm just going to add a thicker cable that goes straight from the alternator to the battery. And that's still going to help. It's not going to hinder it in any way possible. And like I said earlier, you can leave the existing wires and it doesn't really hurt it. You're just going to add on top of that. So now it's as simple as cutting new wires. I've got some 0 gauge wire from New Concepts. It's a company I've used for a while now, since way back when I was building like car stereos. So car stereo guys know all about big wiring because they got big amplifiers, they take a lot of power, so they know all about the Big Three upgrade and thick cables. A lot of these cables are actually pulled from an old truck I had that got totaled when somebody hit me, and I pulled all this stuff out of it because cable's cable, it still works. So using a little pair of bolt cutters, I cut a length of ground that closely matches this first ground cable we're gonna replicate. And first I gotta slice off some of the sheathing so that a big terminal can fit on the end of it. So I'm just going to kind of measure that out, lay the terminal next to it, and then just use a razor blade to slice through. And I'm just rolling it as I go. And if you cut all the way through, it just pulls off like that. And then when it comes time, we're going to solder these on because I don't have a crimper big enough to do 0 gauge cable like this. Okay, I've got one ground cable made already. It's this little short guy that's going to go from the negative post right here to my body ground. And you can see I've got this body ground, you know, ground down to clean metal, and I'll put some dielectric grease on that so it doesn't rust up. But that one's real simple. It's just going to kind of curl like that. Now, I've got this whole length of wire, and I put a terminal on one end of it, and I connected it down to the block where it needs to be, and then I just routed the cord how I wanted it to be, so it's going to be out of the way, easy to move if the battery ever needs to come in and out, anything like that. So I know where I need to cut it, and we're going to take the big bolt cutters. It's hard to kind of get a wire this big into the bolt cutter. Alright, so now I'm going to unbolt this and we'll go put another cable end on it. Okay, that's it. I've got my 3 cables made. I've got 2 for ground and then 1 to go from the alternator to the battery. And this modification honestly isn't expensive. The company that I buy this cable from is called New Concepts. I can put a link down in the description. And this is their like basic cable. It's I think they've got 3 different grades of power cable, and this is the lowest one. It's CCA, which is copper clad aluminum. So it's an aluminum wire that they dip in copper basically. And it's still a huge upgrade from the existing wires, mainly because of just the size of the wire increases so much. If you want something better, you can get like a pure copper cable. Pure copper is going to carry more power than an aluminum clad wire could. but still, you're looking at maybe, in my case, granted these are all some pretty short cables, but I've got, you know, maybe 5 or 6 feet of cable here, and this stuff was about 90 cents a foot. So I've only got, you know, $6 worth of cable here. You can buy it by the foot. So if you measure out exactly what you need and buy just that, you're looking at $6 in cable, and then each terminal is maybe $1. I'm not sure exactly, but maybe $1. So you're looking at, I've got maybe $10 sitting here, not including the tools it took to build it. And if you built it using their high-end cable, that cable's $4 a foot. So 6 feet of that at $4 a foot, you're looking at $24, and then the same 6 terminal ends, so that'd be about $30. So you can get this done on the cheap end for 10, or you can go all out and get their nice cable for 30. It's really not that expensive. Let's put it in. So here we go. This is everything installed. We've got 1, 2 new ground cables. This cable goes all the way down to the engine block underneath the alternator and everything here, and then this single short run from the alternator to the battery, and that's all it is. 3 cables, pretty simple. So the real test, let's see if it starts. So come along with me, we'll try this. First shot, it's gonna work. Okay, that's good power so far. Little belt squeak, but she's minty. Battery's charging. Very nice. Looks like it's working to me. So that's going to be it for this video. Just 2 little modifications today. Now I've got the connection point on the axle for a suckdown winch, and I've got a little better charging system. Maybe in the future, you can upsize this to a bigger alternator out of a Durango or a Grand Cherokee, I think it is, get you some more amps, but for the time being I think this one will do okay. So I'm excited to get it out on the trail and especially try out this suckdown winch and see if it really just makes the Jeep feel more stable when I'm climbing some steep hills. So that's it for this episode. Catch you guys later.